Well, hello, everybody. We're back. It's been a bit since the last little stream I did. Obviously, that was the birthday stream, which was a lot of fun. I will be probably putting up the VOD for that before the weekend. However, I need to edit something out, something very small but important that needs to come out of the stream. Once I'm done with that, I will upload it. So if you missed the birthday stream, which I don't think anybody here did, you can go ahead and watch that. But before I get into all the fun stuff, let's say hello to everybody here. Well, hello, RBF, my wonderful, wonderful friend. We got Mike, the big musky chicken Mike. Jesus. Always with the weird names. We got Julian Green and Spectre. My friend is Spectre. So, a lot's been going on. I apologize again for not streaming on Sunday like I initially planned. Unfortunately, I was kind of crippled by my gastrointestinal problems, and wasn't a good idea for me to be on stream. That stuff can get really draining, and when my anxiety's through the roof with that stuff, it's not a good idea for me. So I put it to today because I was going to be home earlier than normal, obviously. So we're here. What's been going on with me? Well, a lot. I've started doing the research for the next big video, which is the Monument Mythos timeline. I'm working with a couple of people that are very, very familiar with Mr. Manticore's stuff, all of his works of art, really. And they're helping me put together everything so that it looks proper. And once that's done, I will get that started. That probably won't be out until probably mid next month because I'm going to be gone for a whole week. You will get another one of these this weekend, and then I will be gone the following weekend and the weekend after that because I will be on vacation. Yay! So, no fun for me for you guys for that, but I will try and find something fun to do on this Sunday stream. I'm not sure if I'm going to do something that's more Tribe 12 because that does have to get finished. I don't know if I might go over the Nixon verse with you guys, maybe a couple of those videos, which is the series after the Monument Mythos, or the successor, kind of, the spinoff. So maybe I'll look at those videos. I'm definitely thinking about doing a Friday stream, possibly, so that I can do a little more Faith gameplay, because that was freaking fun. Hello, Oleander Rainbow, welcome. Yeah, that was a ton of fun, and I went back and played a little more Chapter 1 to get some of the other achievements on Steam, and some of those alternate endings are hysterical, and I need to show you guys that. So eventually I will, hopefully Friday, I will hop back on and do that sort of stream just so we can play more of Chapter 2, get all the alternate endings for that, show out you alternate endings for Chapter 1. Sorry, I can't speak. But there's that. Oh, and also Repo, the Genetic Opera, the review is almost at 300 views. Wow. That is so much better than I thought it was going to do. It is still the #1 video out of the last 10 that I've posted. And I am extremely pleased and extremely excited about that. So it's almost at 300 views. I'm closing in on 1,300 subs. We're going to keep going. We are going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep putting out high quality content, which means that I'm not going to be able to put out probably more than one video a month. And sorry about that. Yeah, it takes a lot more time for me to do those things and juggle it with work because I don't work from home anymore. So one video a month besides the Patreon exclusive stuff is what I'm going to be looking at. So we're going to go with that. With that said, we've got a serial killer to talk about, don't we? David Berkowitz, aka the 44 caliber killer, aka the son of Sam, aka Richard David Falco, which is his birth name. I didn't know that. There's some stuff I found out doing research on this that I didn't even know. I didn't know he was called the 44 caliber killer until I did the research on this. And I've known about Son of Sam for a long time. I didn't know the extent that I didn't know it to this extent, but now I'm going to share with you the 10 pages of notes that I got out of my research. Yay! So, David Berkowitz was born June 1st, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York. He's a New Yorker. Like I said, his birth name was Richard David Falco. Yes, I will get into that, Oleander. I will get into that. But he was born into really bad circumstances to begin with. He was adopted, but before he was adopted, he was born to his biological mother, Elizabeth Betty Broder, who was born in a poor Jewish family and worked as a waitress. Prior to his birth, she was married to an Italian-American man named Tony Falco from 1936 to 1940, who left her for another woman and divorced her. Big sad. Now, that's not his biological father. His biological father, supposedly, is a man named Joseph Kleinman, who was a married man. Not more than a few days or so after he was born, he was put up for adoption because once Joseph Kleinman found out that Betty was pregnant, he basically said, "You give up the child or I'm leaving." So what do you think she did? She gave up the kid. Good job, Betty. Thankfully for him, he was adopted into a relatively good family, from what I understand. He was adopted by Pearl and Nathan Berkowitz, who then switched his name to David Richard Berkowitz for their last name, and took out the Falco. These people were basically living in the Bronx at the time. They were Jewish Americans in their middle-age years, and they owned a modest hardware store. Now, even though that sounds kind of nice, David had a troubled childhood. Now, there's no real information about where he went for, like, it's called Public School number 123 and number 77 is what it was called when I did my research on this. I couldn't find articles about where he went for schooling for elementary school or middle school, if they have that over there. I know over here where I live, they have middle school. Depends on where you are. But he lost interest in school really early, even though he was a relatively bright kid. That's totally okay, Oleander. People get excited about some of these things, and we get to certain parts that I am gonna cover later. That's totally okay. It's no problem. I like when people get excited about this stuff. He was considered difficult and a spoiled bully by his family members. He obviously bullied other kids. But part of that came from the fact that he thought he was an unattractive person. He thought he was an ugly kid and everyone was out to get him. That's what he thought. On top of being very hyperactive, he had a hard time with things. And his way of expressing himself was bullying other people and being a recluse otherwise. Though he thought he was unattractive, his neighbors said that he was, quote, a nice-looking boy. Okay. A lot of his hyperactivity, though, was channeled into baseball, because he apparently really, really liked baseball when he was in his school years, and that's what he did. When he wasn't doing that, he was infatuated with petty larceny and arson, which comes up later. Psychotherapists that his parents had consulted with him because of his acting out, obviously said he had some trouble. Not cool. He also had some trouble because he legitimately believed that his birth mother had died during his birth. So he not only thought that the world was out to get him and he was ugly, he thought his birth mother had died when he found out he was adopted. I'm pretty sure that would make a kid act out. Pretty sure. Unfortunately, probably the person he cared about the most passed away when he was 14 in the year of 1967. Pearl Berkowitz died from breast cancer. And that sent David into a spiral. He didn't really like his adoptive father, Nathan, though he didn't have a choice and ended up living with him for the rest of his school years, up until he graduated from high school, in a 4.5 room apartment at 170 Dreiser Loop in Co-op City. Didn't like his adoptive dad. And his sense of like self-persecution where the whole world was against him really got worse at this point. He became more alienated and more self-delusional about everybody's out to get him. He's ugly. No one wants him. And what little faith he had in religion, or what little thought he gave to that, dissipated when his mother died. That was like a massive blow to him. Not the most massive blow, though. He graduated from Christopher Columbus High in 1971 and then proceeded to join the U.S. Army from 1971 to 1974. He trained in Fort Knox. He was assigned to an infantry division that was basically stationed in South Korea, became a, quote, proficient marksman, from what some articles have stated. And he developed a deep hatred for women because of a bad sexual experience, which was allegedly his first sexual experience. He was a virgin up until this particular event, and he allegedly got a venereal disease from a lady of the night. The one time he got his what? Yeah. So he didn't like women after that one. He was really bitter about that, which I would be too, but you kind of run that gambit when you do that kind of stuff. He eventually did receive an honorable discharge in June 1974 and moved back to New York, where he located his birth mother, Betty. When he did, he was told the truth of his adoption, about how his alleged birth father didn't want anything to do with him. And, oh boy. This event was described by a forensic anthropologist by the name of Elliot Layton as, quote, the primary crisis of his life. He went from thinking that he was the reason his birth mother died to finding out she's not dead, and the reason that she didn't keep him is because his birth father told him, F right off, or I'm leaving. It's either me or the kid. And that just shattered him. Completely shattered him. Eventually, he did stop talking to Betty, but he did, however, stay connected with his half-sister, Rosalind. She doesn't get talked about much, but it's important to note that he did have some sort of connection to his blood that he did keep. During his pre-crime adult years, from what we understand, he attended Bronx Community College for about a year, but dropped out. And during that time, he was living with his dad again, who ended up remarrying and moving to Florida not too long after he dropped out of college. He briefly worked as a taxi driver for the Co-op City Taxi Company in 1976, and here's where Oleander brought it up. He did start working as a letter sorter, or what Oleander called a caser, right before, I think, 1977, up until 1977 when he got caught. Unfortunately, his crime spree began in late 1975, specifically 2 days after Christmas. And this is alleged because nobody can really tie it back to him specifically. Let me verify that. I may have misread that at some point. Yeah, this is he's still suspected for this one. We're not totally sure. I'm guessing that learning his mom gave him away was a confirmation in his mind that he was right about everyone being against him. Yeah, I think it was Julian. I also think it was a feeling of not being wanted by his the paternal figures in his life, because obviously around that time he didn't really get along with his adoptive father. His adoptive father obviously leaves to Florida and just basically cuts him out. And then finding out that your birth father, allegedly, doesn't want anything to do with you will screw up any young man's mind. Even if he was an adult by the time he found out. That's going to F you up. That's going to screw you up a lot. But back to where I was at. The first two crimes he committed were on the same day, and that was December 27th, 1975. Again, this is alleged. I couldn't find anything specifically connecting him to this, but he is suspected for this. He was in Co-op City at the time, and first he attacked an unidentified Hispanic woman who he stabbed with a hunting knife and never went to get treatment that they know of. But the second and last person that he had any contact with or attempted to murder with a knife was Michelle Foreman. Michelle is a 15-year-old, or was a 15-year-old girl who was a sophomore at Truman High School at the time. She was stabbed 6 times on a bridge near Dreiser Loop and was hospitalized for a week. It is believed that after the failure of these events, that Berkowitz moved to Yonkers in order to kind of get away from the possible heat that he could have gotten from that, which he never really did. The second time he attacked somebody, and this is another 2 victims, was on the 29th of July in 1976 at around 1:10 a.m. This occurred in Pelham Bay in the Bronx in a parking lot outside New Rochelle discotheque, outside a New Rochelle discotheque called Peachtrees. The 2 victims were 18-year-old Donna Loria and 19-year-old Jody Valenti. Loria worked as an emergency medical technician, and Valenti worked as a nurse. At this point in time, they were in Loria's car. They opened the car door to leave. And go to the discotheque and notice that there was a man approaching the car. They yelled out, "What are you doing?" before the man kind of crouched, produced a gun from a paper bag, and fired 3 shots. The first shot struck and killed Loria instantly. The second shot hit Valenti in the thigh, and the third shot missed and went into the car. As soon as those shots were fired, the gunman fled. Now, Though Loria did not survive this, Valenti did, and she was able to provide a description to the police. She described the person as a white male in his 30s, with fair complexion, standing at about 5 feet 8 inches and weighing approximately 200 pounds. He had short, curly hair and a mod style. Mod style is a type of British punk rock hairstyle, very similar to the stuff that the Monkees had back in in that time. The same description was repeated by Loria's father, and neighbors in the area described an unfamiliar yellow compact car cruising the area hours before the shooting. Put a pin in that. The third attack occurred on October 23rd, 1976, just a few months later, in Flushing, Queens by Bowie Park. The two victims were Carl Dono and Rosemary Keenan. Keenan's a very important name, and you'll find out in a second why. Dono was a 20-year-old Citibank security guard, and Keenan was an 18-year-old Queens college student. They were in Keenan's parked car when the windows suddenly started to shatter. Dono described the event as, "It felt like the car exploded." Keenan basically turned her car on and just took off. Both of them survived. However, Dono did have a bullet wound to the head and needed a metal plate to replace part of his skull because it got shattered by the bullet. Keenan had superficial wounds, but 44 caliber bullets were found embedded in the vehicle, but were too damaged to be traced. It is believed that this occurred because Dono had long dark hair and was mistaken to be a woman. Keenan's important because her father, a 20-year-old NYPD detective, began the most extensive investigation into Berkowitz, not Berkowitz directly, but this crime, which will come back later because Keenan is probably one of the most infamous people in this case. The detective, I mean. The third attack happened a little over a month later in Floral Park, just after midnight, and the two victims were Donna DeMasi and Joanne Lamino. Donna DeMasi, both of them were high school students. Donna DeMasi was 16 at the time. Joanne Lamino was 18 at the time. Now, while they were out on the front porch of Lamino's home, a man in military fatigues approached them and asked for directions in a very high-pitched voice. After starting to ask for directions, he produced a revolver and fired multiple times at the victims. He shot them both at least once, and when they fell to the floor, injured, he fired at them multiple more times to try and make sure they were dead. Both of them survived, but not unscathed. A neighbor came out hearing the gunshots and reportedly saw a blonde man running past with a pistol in his left hand. This adds to a weird speculation that there was more than one person involved in the 44 caliber / Son of Sam crimes. That I'm gonna briefly talk about towards the end or in the middle of this, but I'm gonna talk about that a little bit more in a side video that I'll talk about at the end. DeMasi was shot in the neck and was in critical condition but did survive. Lamino was shot in the back and was rendered paraplegic, so she did not get out of that unscathed. The next attack occurred just a few months later on the 30th of January 1977 at around 12:40 a.m. in Forest Hills, Long Island, in the railroad station parking lot in Queens. The victims were Christine Frond, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, who was a 26-year-old secretary, and John Deal, a 30-year-old bartender. They basically just gotten back from a date and were about to go to their car parked at the station. And while they were in the car, the attacker crept up to the car and fired 3 shots through the back window at close range. Deal describes this as We were in the car at most 2 minutes and were just ready to take off when all of a sudden I heard a crash. The window came in. It didn't sound like a firecracker. It was a bang. Chris slumped over onto my shoulder. Then I ran out of the car and yelled for help. Like Deal had described, he ran out of the car and stopped another vehicle at the red light, at a red light at the intersection of Burn Street and 71st Avenue. That car took him back to his own vehicle where the dead, unfortunately, a dying Frond was, and got the cops. Frond was taken to Johns Queen's Hospital in Elmhurst and died about 4:30 a.m. that day. This was enough for the police to finally acknowledge that there was a connection between these shootings. NYPD Sergeant Richard Conlin did a press conference of sorts and said they were leaning towards a connection in all cases, noted that 44 caliber bullets were found in each of the shootings. All of the women involved, excluding one that was believed to be a woman, had long dark hair, and at the time it was believed there was multiple suspects involved. There's the black-haired suspect for Loria and Valenti, and there's the blonde-haired suspect for the Lamino Damasi shootings. Still nothing concrete, though. Yes, he's kind of sloppy. But still didn't catch him. The way they caught him is phenomenal. But I digress. Little less than 2 months later, on March 8th in 1977, at about 7:30 p.m., which is a bit different from sorry, I got a message I needed to attend to. It's a little bit different because they usually happen at night, dead of night. This one happens in Forest Hill, Queens, with one victim, and that would be 19-year-old Virginia Vescarichian, probably pronounced that wrong, who is a student at Columbia University. She was actually returning home from school when she was shot. The shooting occurred in front of 4 Dartmouth Street, which was pretty much a block away from where Frond was shot. Or she lived a block away from where Frond was shot. From what they could tell, she was approached at close range. And when she realized that she was about to be shot, she lifted her purse and textbooks, which were in her hand at the time, up to block her face. But unfortunately, the bullet pierced the books, and she was shot in the head. Her body was found in shrubbery at the scene with the signs of what I just described on her books and her person. They finally, by they I mean the NYPD and Mayor Abram Beam, addressed the public in a press conference on the 10th of March in 1977, and basically confirmed that a .44 caliber Brill Dog revolver was declared as the weapon used in this last shooting. They said they couldn't conclusively link that particular revolver to all of the shootings, but this still circulated around the world. So much so, the Son of Sam was initially called the .44 caliber killer. After this dubbing, about a month later, on the 17th of April 1977, about 3 a.m., Alexander Esau and Valentina Soriano were shot by the Hutchinson River Parkway Service Road in Bronx, New York. Esau was a 20-year-old tow truck operator. Valenti was an 18-year-old college student and aspiring actress and model who currently attended Lehman College. They were parked in a car that belonged to Esau's brother. They were on a date. and they were just a few blocks away from where Loria and Valenti were also shot. 4 shots were fired at close range through the driver's side window where Suriana sat, and Suriana died on the scene. Esau had 1 bullet wound to the head and would eventually die in the hospital late that night, so both people, unfortunately, passed away from their wounds. This is where things start to get a little bit hinky. There was a letter found at the scene for this particular shooting that was wrote crudely in block capitals and was addressed to NYPD Captain Joseph Borelli. This particular letter is where the Son of Sam moniker came from. And I'm going to read this for you. This is what the letter said. I am deeply hurt by your calling me a women hater. I am not. Yet it was spelled W-E-M-O-N, women. I'm going to read it exactly as it is written. But I am a monster. I am the Son of Sam. I am a little brat. When Father Sam gets drunk, he gets mean. He beats his family. Sometimes he ties me up to the back of the house. Other times he locks me in the garage. Sam loves to drink blood. Go out and kill, commands Father Sam. Behind our house, some rest. Mostly young, R-worded and slaughtered. Their blood drained, just bones now. Papa Sam keeps me locked in the attic, too. I can't get out, but I look out the attic window and watch the world go by. I feel like an outsider. I'm on a different wavelength than everybody else, programmed to kill. However, to stop me, you must kill me. Attention all police. Shoot me first. Shoot to kill or else. Keep out of my way or you will die. Papa Sam is old now. He needs some blood to preserve his youth. He's had too many heart attacks. Too many heart attacks. Me hoot, it hurts, sonny boy. I miss my pretty princess most of all. She's resting at Our Lady's house, but I'll see her soon. I am the monster, Beelzebub, the chubby behemoth. I love to hunt, prowling the streets looking for fair game, tasty meat. The women of Queens are the prettiest of all. I must be the water they drink. I live for the hunt, my life. Blood for Papa. Mr. Borelli, sir, I don't want to kill any more. No, sir, no more, but I must. Honor thy father. I want to make love to the world. I love people. I don't belong on earth. Return me to Yahoos, to the people of Queens, I love you. And I want to wish all of you a happy Easter. May God bless you in this life and in the next. And for now, I say goodbye and good night. Police, let me haunt you with these worlds. I'll be back. I'll be back. To be interpreted as bang, 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 bank, bang, yours in murder, Mr. Monster. That's the first letter. That's the first letter that was sent. Pretty nasty. That was found at the scene of the crime. It was speculated that the writer was of Scottish-English descent due to the phrases used in this letter, particularly me hoot it hurts, sonny boy, which they thought was my heart it hurts, sonny boy, which is kind of a phrase that is used in, Scottish English slang, or a phrase that's used. They also hypothesized that the killer hated dark-haired women because a nurse with the same hair color was the type to cause his father's death. I don't know where that came from, but okay. They also described the suspect as neurotic, with paranoid schizophrenia and a belief of personal demonic possession in the May 26, 1977 psych profile. This wasn't the only letter that was sent, though. A second letter was sent on the 30th of May in 1977 to a Daily News columnist named Jimmy Breslin. It was postmarked the same day on the reverse in Englewood, New Jersey, and had 4 lines on it that precisely were centered and neat that said, blood and family, darkness and death, absolutely depraved, .44 caliber. This is what it read. Hello from the gutters of New York City, which are filled with dog manure, vomit, stale wine, urine, and blood. Hello from the sewers of New York City, which swallowed up these delicacies when they were washed away by the sweeper trucks. Hello from the cracks in the sidewalks of New York City, and from the ants that dwell in these cracks and feed in the dried blood of the dead that was settled into the cracks. Sounds like a Sweeney Todd reference. JB, I'm just dropping you a line to let you know that I appreciate your interest in those recent and horrendous 44 caliber killings. I also want to tell you that I read your column daily, and I find it quite informative. Tell me, Jim, what will you have for July 29th? You can forget about me if you like, because I don't care for publicity. However, you must not forget Donna Laura, and you cannot let the people forget her either. She was a very, very sweet girl, but Sam's a thirsty lad, and he won't let me stop killing until he gets his fill of blood. Mr. Breslin, sir, don't think that because you haven't heard from me for a while that I went to sleep. No, rather, I am still here, like a spirit roaming the night, thirsty, hungry, seldom stopping to rest, anxious to please Sam. I love my work. Now the void has been filled. Perhaps we shall meet face to face someday, or perhaps I will be blown away by cops with smoking 38s. However, or whatever. If I shall be fortunate enough to meet you, I will tell you all about Sam, if you like, and I'll introduce you to him. His name is Sam the Terrible. Not knowing what the future holds, I shall say farewell, and I will see you at the next job. Or should I say, you will see my handiwork at the next job. Remember, Miss Laura, thank you. In their blood and from the gutter, Sam's creation, 44 caliber. Here are some names to help you along. Forward them to the inspector for use by NCIC, the Duke of Death, the Wicked King Wicker, the 22 Disciples of Hell, John Wheaties, the R-word of Suffocator, and Suffocator of Young Girls, creepy. P.S. Please inform all the detectives working the slaying to remain. P.S. JB, please inform all the detectives working the case that I wish them the best of luck. Keep them digging, drive on, think positive, get off your boots, knock on coffins, etc. Upon my capture, I promise to buy all the guys working case a new pair of shoes if I can get them up the money. Son of Sam. Yeah, he's kind of nifty, isn't he? He's kind of nifty. Kind of growth. He's a growth man. He's a very, very growth man. This particular letter had the Son of Sam logo, which is in the thumbnail, sketched on the bottom of the letter. The weight, what will you have for July 29th, was considered to be a threat, and because of how well written and neat this particular letter was in comparison to the other one, they went so far as to ask DC to see if they recognized the writing on this letter. Yeah. They talked to DC Comics because they thought he was a comic book letterer. That's an interesting factoid I didn't know. They also believed he was a horror movie fan because he references The Wicker Man. And this particular, that's true. There wasn't very many misspellings in there this time. This particular letter was published in the Daily News on the 6th of June in 1977. And, Jimmy Breslin basically urged the shooter to turn themselves in. Thousands of tips flooded the police. And the hysteria that came with this particular case caused women to cut their hair short, dye it a darker color, or go buy wigs, to the point that there were massive sellouts of wigs in stores. They could not get enough of them out. There was not enough. Period. Apparently this wasn't enough, because on the 26th of June in 1877, around 3 a.m., this is kind of alleged, not totally sure. Actually, no, this isn't alleged. This one was actually attributed to him. I'm removing that from my notes. Completely forgot to do it before. But in the parking lot of another discotheque named Alpha's in Bayside, Queens, Sal Luop and Judy Placido were shot. Luop was 20 years old and a mechanics helper, and Placido was a 17-year-old high school graduate. 3 gunshots were fired into the parked vehicle. One shot went into Lupo's... I'm sorry, not Luop. Lupo. Apologies, I mistyped that. Lupo's right forearm. The second shot went into Placido's right temple. And the third shot went through Placido's shoulder into the back of their neck and out the other side. Nobody died. But oddly enough, they had been talking about the Son of Sam case just minutes before the shooting. Neither of them could get a description of the person, but there were 2 witnesses that did describe the attacker as a tall, dark-haired man wearing a beige leisure suit, that was seen fleeing in a vehicle that had the partial license plate recognized and related to the police. 2 numbers and a letter. The next shooting happened a little over a month later, on the 31st of July in 1977 at 2:50 a.m., which is the last shooting, in the Shore Parkway and Bayforth Street intersection in Bath Beach. The victims for this particular shooting were Stacy Mascawati and Robert Violante. Stacy was a 20-year-old secretary. Violante was a 20-year-old clothing salesman. They were both sitting in Violante's car after a date when the assailant crept up in a crouched position from behind and shot them 4 times with both hands on the weapon. Yeah, somebody must have missed the point of the original workman, yeah. They shot 4 times. The first shot went into Violante's head, 2 shots went into Moskowitz's head, and 1 shot missed and lodged in the steering wheel of the vehicle. The assailant then left calmly from where he came, or from whence he came, and left them to die. Violante didn't die, but did end up losing his left eye after the shot and the injuries from this particular incident, and Moskowitz did die from her injuries. Witnesses reported seeing a yellow Volkswagen leaving the scene after the shooting. Remember that yellow car that was talked about towards the beginning? Yeah, there it is again. The weapon was identified as a .44 caliber Bulldog revolver. Sound familiar? The description of the person was given by multiple witnesses as a male in their 20s, standing between 5'7" and 5'10", with a medium build, and dressed in dungarees and a gray shirt with the sleeves rolled up. This was the very last shooting, and it was this shooting that basically screwed Berkowitz. He came into suspicion initially because somebody had witnessed something odd around the time in the area of the last shooting. A woman, a resident by the name of Cecilia Davis, was walking her dog during that last shooting when she noted a patrol officer by the name of Michael Cataneo ticketing a yellow 1970 Ford Galaxy because they parked in front of a fire hydrant. Around that same time, she saw a young man walk past her with a dark object, quote unquote, in hand. As she starts to walk away from the incident, she hears some gunshots behind her and just takes off running for home with her dog. She wasn't sure to report it or not, but she did end up reporting it to the police 4 days later on August 4th in 1977. After this, NYPD Detective James Justice decides to call the Yonkers PD on the 9th, 5 days after that, to talk about getting Berkowitz in for an interview, because basically what they've done is they run all of the tickets in that area for any yellow vehicles, and Berkowitz popped up. So they called the Yonkers PD for an interview, and they ended up being routed to dispatcher Wheat Carr, who took the call. Tag that name again. Last name Karl. Put a pin in that. When Detective Justice called and Karl picked up the phone, she goes, "Let me tell you about him. I know him. He lives right behind me." Or something to that effect. And then proceeds to talk about how Berkowitz shot her father's black lab, Harvey. She also tells them that her father's name is Sam Carr. Why does that name sound familiar? What is that? Oh, son of Sam. Sam Carr. Look at that. Everything is lining up. The dots are coming together. The stars are aligning in a perfect line. We've got him. Yonkers Police Sergeant Mike Novotny basically states they had already been tracking Berkowitz and had a feeling he was a suspect. They just hadn't had enough proof to grab him. So, they get together. And they decide they might have the son of Sam, guys. So, what they do is they go to check out Berkowitz's place, and guess what's parked out front of the building at 35 Pine Street, which is now 41 Pine Street, I think. They tried to change it because people kept coming to the building. Didn't work. They still came. And what do they see in the car when they look inside the back seat? They see a gun in plain view and go, "Ooh, we're going to use this as probable cause to search the vehicle." And what do they find when they do that? They find a duffel bag full of ammo, they find maps of the crime scenes, and they find a third letter that's written to Instructor Timothy Down, who was the lead investigator of the Son of Sam task force. Oh, busted. Somebody's busted. And all because he left a revolver on the freaking seat of his car. If that revolver had not been there, they would have had no excuse to search that car and find all that stuff. No. They decide, we're going to wait for him to come out and come to his car because they didn't want to deal with being confrontational in the hallway of the apartment building and possibly hurting other people. And while they waited, they requested to have a warrant to search his apartment. They didn't get it. But by around 10 o'clock p.m., he comes out and goes into his vehicle. He's then approached by Berkowitz. The car is then approached by Detective John Falatico and Sergeant William Gardella. Once he's in his car, weapons drawn, obviously. And reportedly, the conversation goes a little bit something like this, and this is between Falatico and Berkowitz. "Well, you got me. Now that I've got you, who have I got?" "You know." "No, I don't. You tell me." "I'm Sam." "You're Sam. Sam who?" "Sam. David Berkowitz." Cheeky bastard. This cheeky bastard. So, after that basically confession, they search the apartment after he's arrested. They arrest him, search his apartment. They find the apartment's in absolute disarray. Complete disarray. There's satanic graffiti all over the walls, and then they find the most damning thing that I couldn't find any extra information on. I wish I could because this is nuts. They found 3 stenographers' journals filled to the brim with over 1,400 arsons that were allegedly committed throughout New York City. He wasn't just killing people. He wasn't just attempting to kill people. He was burning shit. He was burning the fuck out of shit. Yeah. While they were doing the search, he was briefly held at Yonkers PD, but eventually transferred to 60th Precinct in Coney Island, where Mayor Beam showed up at about 1 a.m. on the 11th, talked to the detectives for a short while, and then made an announcement to the press saying, quote, "The people of the city of New York can rest easy because of the fact the police have captured the man whom they believe to be the son of Sam." Not long after this, John Keenan, told you to keep a pin in that name, interrogates Berkowitz and takes all of 30 minutes for him to completely confess to everything and say, "Yeah, I'll plead guilty. I'll plead guilty to the charges. Cool, take me to court. Let's go." During all of this, his defense attorneys were trying to say plead insanity. He wouldn't. But going back a little bit. During the interrogation, he made these claims that are really fucking nuts. He claimed that Harvey, the Black Lab, demanded the blood of pretty young girls. He was claiming that Harvey was talking to him. He also claimed that Harvey was possessed by an ancient demon, probably Beelzebub, who issued irresistible commands for him to kill pretty young women or pretty young girls. He was also allowed to talk to the press at a couple points. On the 19th of September in 1977, he was allowed to talk to the New York Post. And during that, he alluded to the possession story, but didn't really disclose anything about it because he thought that it could be interpreted as him having accomplices. But what he did kind of say was that there are other sons out there. God help the world. Pin in that because I'm not really going to get too much into it. Ryland says, "I mean, when I did criminal psychology, Son of Sam was somehow one of the more fascinating killers my course looked into." Yeah, pretty much. Your Honor, the dog made me kill people. Yeah, basically was his excuse. He did kind of eventually, like 2 years later, in another conference, say that was all a hoax, but what can you do? That's what he gave. And because of that, he was confined to Kings County Psych Ward, and the staff basically said he was like a model inmate, but patient, but he apparently really didn't like the environment and was really troubled by it. I don't know. Before his trial started, he was evaluated 3 different times to determine whether or not he was sane to stand trial. And even though all 3 of them said that he was indeed sane enough to stand trial and competent enough to stand trial, his lawyers were telling him to do it anyways, plead insanity. He was like, "Nah, I'm cool. I'm just going to plead completely guilty to 25 counts," which he did on the 8th of May in 1978. His sentencing hearing comes on the 22nd of that same month, and this dude attempts to jump out the window of the courtroom, which was on the 7th floor of the courthouse. Once he was stopped from doing that, because obviously he didn't die, so obviously he didn't jump out the window, even though he really tried, he would chant stuff like, "Stacy was a whore, and I'd kill her again. I'd kill them all again." Because of those antics, he was given a 4th evaluation, which he was still determined to be completely sane. And on this evaluation, he tried to kind of show he was insane by drawing a sketch of a jailed man surrounded by numerous walls and writing, "I'm not well at all," at the bottom of the page for the evaluation. Again, still found competent to stand trial. Once he was found competent for a 4th time, the hearing resumed, and the resumation came in on the 12th of June in 1978. He was then questioned by Justice Kappelman, who was the one that was the judge presiding, and the conversation went a little bit like this. At the time of your taking a plea, you said no force or compulsion was used. It is true. Did the demons tell you? No. Your decision to enter the plea was your own without the compulsion of demons. They had some influence, but the ultimate decision was yours? Yes. Were you under the power of demons when you pleaded guilty? Was the decision to waive the defense of insanity yours, and yours alone? Not alone, but it was yours. Yes. That is the weirdest fucking conversation with a judge. Okay. He was basically sentenced to 200 plus years, 300 years in prison. 25 consecutive sentences of 25 years to life. Yeah. So he not going nowhere. Once he was sentenced, he was taken to Sing Song prison. And allegedly while he was there or in transit between the multiple prisons that I'm going to mention in a second, he was attacked by a fellow inmate in 1979 who attempted to completely slit the left side of his throat from front to back, which cost him about 50 stitches to get back together. He's not dead. He's still alive as far as I know. Berkowitz never identified them and refused to identify them because he said that he deserved it as his punishment and he was grateful for the attack. He was moved from Sing Song prison to Clinton Correctional Facility for physical and psychiatric exams, eventually being transferred to Central New York Psychiatry Center in Marcy. He was then transferred to Attica Prison, which he described as living in a nightmare. Transferred again to Sullivan Correctional Facility in Fallsburg, where he pursued an education and graduated with honors from Sullivan Community College. And then he was transferred to Shawagunk Correctional Facility in Ulster County, which is where he resides at this time, as far as I could find. During this time, he allegedly found God. He converted to Christianity, and evangelical Christianity, in 1987, allegedly while he was reading Psalm 34:6, which reads, "This poor man called, and the Lord heard him. He saved him out of all his troubles." Allegedly, that converted him to Christianity, which he's still very involved with to this day. He changed his name from the Son of Hand to the Son of Hope. Okay. And he allegedly invited exorcist Malachi Martin to compose his autobiography, which was denied. And then eventually developed his own memoirs with fellow evangelicals in this prison. He released these writings as an interview video, Son of Hope. The book was extended upon in a video called Son of Hope, The Prison Journals of David Berkowitz, that was released in 2006, which he didn't get any royalties for. To this day, he continues to write essays on faith and repentance for evangelical sites. Or he did. For a while, he did maintain the Forgiven Life website with Church Group until access to the internet was disallowed. He's still involved in the prison ministry and still regularly helps troubled inmates. Good for him, I guess. He also was an extra cheeky bastard about his parole hearings. To which he doesn't really have any faith in if he does show up to him. His first parole hearing was in 2002. And he basically sent a letter to the New York governor at the time, George Pataki, and demanded his parole be canceled, saying the following: "In all honesty, I believe that I deserve to be in prison for the rest of my life. I have, with God's help, long ago come to terms with my situation, and I have accepted my punishment." Obviously, the cancellation was rejected, along with his parole. He had another parole hearing in 2016. He did appear at this one, but stated the parole was unrealistic, and that he believed he'd improve behind bar. That though he was believed he'd improve behind bars and was no risk whatsoever, he should still stay in prison. He was indeed considered a model prisoner by the rest of the staff at the prison, but was inevitably denied parole. Somewhere in between there, he just didn't show up to one, and they had to move it to the 2016 hearing that I just mentioned, but he was supposed to have a hearing in May 2020, but that was delayed due to the panini, and I haven't seen anything else about that since. There were a few other interesting things that I found out about David that I think were interesting to note and should be taken into account. When the DC sniper stuff was going on, he actually wrote a letter that he sent to Fox News personality Rita Cosby, because she asked for comment, and basically said, "Stop hurting innocent people." He basically asked the DC sniper to stop killing people. Okay. Oh, okay. Do you? He also was in a very high-profile civil suit against a previous lawyer by the name of Hugo Harmutz from New Jersey, who basically stole some letters, photos, and personal possessions of his in June 2005 and published those as his own in a piece, or I guess a book or documentary, some sort. I couldn't completely figure it out, called Dear David in 2005. He got this because he'd represent Berkowitz in an earlier effort to prevent National Enquirer from buying his letters, and instead took them while he was consulting the guy and published them as his own. Berkowitz pretty pissed about that, and stated that he would completely drop the case if all money made off the letters and memorabilia was sent to the victim's family and all the letters were returned to him. Not all that happened. However, in October 2006, they did sell out of court. All of the items that were taken or disputed at the time were returned to David. And part of the profits were donated to the New York State Crime Victims Board. A good deed. A good deed from the Son of Hope. Now, multiple times in here, there was some mention about whether or not there are multiple sons of Sam. Or there's some kind of cult. And I'm not really going to go into that, because I bought the book that's associated with this. And what I plan to do is to actually read this book and do a review of some kind in a video. Probably the one after the timeline for Monument Mythos. I think that would be really interesting to go over, and something very interesting that could be put up either end of December, probably not end of December, because I'm going to be busy and it's going to be a long book. How long is it anyways? I'm going to look at this really quick, see how long this book actually is, and I can give you guys an estimate of how long it might take me to write a script after reading it, and yada, yada, yada. 2 seconds. Let me see if I can find this. I wonder if I can figure out how big this book is. Books. A serial killer asking a sniper to stop killing people sounds like a sick joke. It kind of is. Kind of is. Kinda is. Manage my content and devices. There it is. The Ultimate Evil. The Secret, or The Search for the Sons of Sam. How many pages is this? Let's find out. So, 547 pages, give or take. So epilogue. Yeah, it's about 547 pages of reading. So, I have to read through all of that. And somehow get a video done for you guys for that. I think that'll take me, if I read several chapters a night, granted. That's gonna take me 547, let's say divided by 2. No, let's say 547. Something like that. I don't know how many chapters is in it, but let's say I read a couple chapters a night. That could take me a couple weeks at least. If I'm lucky, I can get something out by maybe mid to the end of the month on January. Probably. So I'm thinking that's the next thing I'll do. Maybe something little in between. Don't know for sure, but that's what I'm thinking of doing. So look forward to that. Hi, Minxie. Sorry, I'm about to close it out, but that's the plan. What I'm gonna do is finish up these Monument Mythos, research, hopefully have that at least ready to edit, if not starting to edit, or partially edited before I go on vacation next week, and then finish it up by first or second week of December. And then once that's done, I'm going to be doing the research and putting that together for the next video, which will be the review of that book. Woo, Lord, that's going to be... Whew, that's going to be one juicy video. So, look forward to that. I was trying to see who was streaming since I can't. Oh, I'm sorry, Minxie. I'm pretty much about done. I'm about to wrap it up. Great to see you though. Thank you for coming by anyways. But yeah, I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call it now. Keep an eye out for all that. Thank you guys for supporting the review, for coming to the birthday stream. Oh, Minxie, I'm probably going to be posting the birthday stream VOD tonight at some point. I have to edit something out, and then I'll post it. So, look out for that. And then, yeah. So, as always, sweet nightmares. Mwah.
Bite me one time, bite me twice. Oh, ah, that's rather nice. Frankenstein, freaks and grudge, scream out loud, you're out of love.
Also, big stream, New Year's Eve, be there.
Psychotic love. I start to turn when all the streets are moonlit. I suck 'em dry and rip off all the skin bits. 'Cause freaky horror films, I'll always Psychotic Love.